Welcome to the Formula 9 podcast, where we talk about everything motorsports except for Formula 1. As always, I am joined by my lovely friend Corbin here, and I, myself, am Griffin Riley. And today we're going to talk about a couple of things. We are going to talk about the Shriners Children's 500, which is the NASCAR race in Phoenix that just happened this last weekend. We're going to talk about a little bit of World Rally Racing, endurance racing, as well as Ferrari's new marketing strategy, specifically Scuderia Ferrari of F1. Corbin, is there anything that you'd like to add before we get into it?
You just said that we're not going to talk about Formula One, and all of a sudden we are going to talk about Formula One specifically?
That's correct.
Great. Let's jump into it.
Let's jump into it. Green flag.
Green flag.
So we're going to run through this one a little bit. The Shriners Children's 500. That is the NASCAR race in Phoenix, as we said.
The one where they go fast and left.
They go really fast, really left.
Yes.
And they do it in the city of the people call it Phoenixes. I mean, it's the bird on fire.
Phoenicians?
No. Like when people refer to like a phoenix, it's a fiery bird.
Right.
Yeah, but I feel like sometimes people call it something cute.
Well, you're from there.
Yeah, I should know. But I don't. So we're going to move past it anyways. Real fast, real left. It is a 300-kilometer race, 500 laps or so.
I'm going to stop you right there. It's a 500-kilometer race.
300 miles then?
300 miles, correct.
Okay,
Right.
My apologies.
But I'm going to stop you there. Why are we referring to it in kilometers? I thought this was America.
I thought it was America as well, but I've been increasingly seeing a lot of people, both on Twitter and like in forums, talking about how many laps, like, because I always thought that something like the Shriners 500 would mean 500 miles, but a lot of it is actually measured in kilometers. I don't know why. Maybe because like motor racing started in Europe. I mean, I guess there's no quote about it. It did start in Europe, but
NASCAR started in America. Started in...
NASCAR is as American as, well, I guess Scotch is whiskey.
you were going to say as American as whiskey.
As American as whiskey.
But Scotch
yeah,
is
but
whiskey.
Scotch probably predates us there.
It's as American as pizza. It's as American as
French fries.
French fries, tacos. It's very American.
It's incredibly American.
Very
It's
American.
laughably American.
Regardless, this is the Shriners Children 500.
This is the Shriners Children 500. Will Byron got pole, and Christopher Bell won the race. There's a crash in stage 2 that took out like 7 cars. A couple more got bumped. There's not really much else to say. Do you have any other real notes from it?
It had a fun last lap. NASCAR also uses white flags, I noticed.
Yep.
It must be an American thing, this using white flags to mark last laps, because I think we established last week that white flag is not really a thing in Formula One.
Correct.
Except for to say that I think something to the effect of a driver ahead of you.
Yeah, I think it was a slow driver ahead of you, if I remember correctly. Yeah, much slower vehicle ahead, whether that's a driver or say they have a safety or like a tractor to lift stuff off the road.
Right.
I feel like that would be a white flag case.
Yeah, so white flag is really, I guess it's an American thing.
Yeah.
So, but yes, the white flag flew, and the last lap, it was all right.
Yeah. And for what it's worth, NASCAR has had a couple of close finishes, like within a millisecond of each other. They've had a couple of those back-to-back in the last couple of years. So this isn't the rarest. I mean, it's a lot closer than you see pretty much any racing in Formula 1. Because Formula 1, you're pretty much always going to have a winner who's like 20 seconds ahead. So it's not much to watch or see. IndyCar, you'll have some very close races, but there's still a gap. Like last year's Indy 500, Pato O'Ward was very comfortably in the lead for a decent chunk, but at the very last second, Joseph Newgarden cut him going into, I think, the third corner of a 4-corner track. And there was distance. Like, it wasn't a photo finish the way it is in cars when Lightning has his tongue out or anything like that.
It's exactly what I was thinking while watching the end of this race. I was like,
Yeah.
I guess it is, Cars is correct, that NASCAR is the series where you find
There's a lot of it.
actual close, very, very
like
close
true
finishes.
neck-to-neck, bumper-to-bumper. It's crazy because if it's that close, how is it not fun to watch?
Here we find ourselves green flagging.
Yes, but, I mean, that being said, the only way I'll slightly yellow flag this is, while it's not fun to watch, I do have experience shooting NASCAR. I shot the Shriners 500 last year. I was telling Corbin about it a little bit this morning. While I don't enjoy NASCAR as a product, as a spectator, I think it is incredibly, incredibly fun to shoot. I almost enjoyed it a lot more than shooting IndyCar. Probably more than... Maybe not more than King of the Hammers, because King of the Hammers we were off-roading, so that was a lot of fun. But NASCAR is just crazy because you're sitting there on the outside of these barriers, and these barriers are maybe like 2 feet wide. They are not that thick, and they're supposed to stop the full speed of a multi-ton car coming at like 200 miles an hour. When there are upwards of 30 cars moving almost 200 miles an hour past you, it is crazy getting hit with that much wind, that much force coming by you. I was wearing a hat, but I always have a lot of hair, so my hats can never really get around it that much. This car, the train of 30 cars comes by me, and my hat flies about like 20 feet behind me. It's just gone with the wind, and it is really, really overwhelming. The sound is so much louder out of NASCAR. Like, it's really, there are just sensations about it that aren't easily replicated in other racing series, I feel.
Right. Yeah. I can't imagine anything else like a flyby. Like,
it's crazy. And again, you were just that much closer than at any other track. Like, I've shot at the Long Beach Grand Prix, and they'll get close to you, don't get it twisted, but because it's like a street circuit and they have the moving concrete barriers as opposed to it being like hard built into the track, if somebody hits one of those barriers, like, that barrier will move if it's at full speed. And they like literally tell you, don't have your feet in between the curbs and the barriers itself, because if you do, and this car comes at force, your entire leg will be shattered and turned to dust, because that's how much force these cars have.
Yeah, I believe it.
So they tell you to even keep a lot of space, and even then they just build in space. But when you're at these NASCAR races, it's like, no, I am separated by a barrier that's maybe 2 feet in general. It's really intoxicating. It was incredibly fun, and I mean, I hope I get more chances to shoot a NASCAR race in the future, because even though it's not like as interesting photographically, just because again they're just going left the whole time, it's just a fun experience. Right. I just enjoy being there working it.
Right, it's a great live spectator sport.
100%.
Television.
That's it for the Shriners 500. I don't have anything else to add. Do you?
Nope. Let's move on.
Cool. What do you have to talk about today, Mr. Corbin?
Because this is an unusually dry weekend for racing.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of nothing.
There was not a whole lot. I mean, there was the National Hot Rod Association. I mean, that was.
Did you watch that?
No, but I was golfing and it was playing in the clubhouse.
Okay.
I didn't watch it, but it was there. So yes, dry weekend. So we decided to, I think we'd do a little educational dive into some other series, and we were discussing this morning, like, what do we want to talk about? So we decided to divvy it up, and I did a little homework assignment, I guess, on WRC, on World Rally, which I really want to get to know. Like, I think it's going to be a hard series to engage with. There's kind of watching it is different. It's built up into these stages.
Yeah.
Fucking, how did I miss the stages?
Yeah, come on, man.
It's built, their rally is around these stages. They're very long.
Yes.
And it's not the same, it's a lot of driving, but it's not a lot of driving in the same way like WEC or IMSA is, where it's kind of a circuit and you can kind of lock in for different periods of time. This is kind of something you really can, you can get a subscription and watch all of it, but it's really the kind of thing you want to watch highlights of.
Absolutely.
And good Lord, are there highlights for Rally. I was just thinking last week, we were talking about how Moto's so hardcore because you've got these drivers, these riders, who are on the edge, and it's because there's no protection. They're just putting their bodies on the line.
Yeah.
Rally is where attendees put their bodies on the line. It's insane.
It's really wild.
You're talking about, just now you were talking about how, being at NASCAR or being at these different racing series, gets intense when you're right there.
Yeah.
Rally, there's no barrier. There's nothing.
There's nothing except the tree that might be in front of you.
Yeah. Or a hay bale that they decided to throw down for some reason. And I'm not even talking about Group B, which I'll get to.
Yeah.
I'm talking about like WRC today is insane. Yeah, it's something that I actually do want to kind of engage with. I think it'd be interesting to catch a few of them. I think we have a couple of races that we want to.
Yeah, we have a couple on our schedule that we want to cover.
Because I think something that really got me interested in racing now is we attended this event you mentioned earlier, King of the Hammers.
Yeah.
Which is just this amazing outdoor 4x4. It's the biggest 4x4 racing event in the country.
Yeah. For reference, it's a 2-week-long off-roading race in the middle of Johnson Valley, which is just outside of the LA area, by 2.5, 3 hours or something.
Right.
And yeah, they have all types of classes, whether it's side-by-sides to trophy trucks. They have some that are like Jeep modified. They have one that's just like a buggy class, so literal old Volkswagen bugs.
Right.
All types of stuff. 2-week-long racing festival.
Right.
Laps take literally an hour because a single lap is across pretty much this entire massive stretch of
Something
desert.
like 70 miles or
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, we attended this event. It was spectacular, surely, and it really is what got me, head over heels for motorsport, not just watching Formula One.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that I kept thinking about the entire time I was there was this connection between, to get really philosophical here, like man, machine, and nature. Like specifically those three. I understood the man and the machine from other racing series, but the nature, the like being on the edge. And I don't think anything does it like rally. I mean,
it really doesn't. Yeah.
It's crazy to see because I think other racing series will take you around the world. They'll take you different places. But I mean, rally, these guys are driving stock cars effectively. They're driving vehicles that have to have some production. They're like meet a production quota.
Yeah, they're homologated to road standards.
Right. So you've got a Hyundai i20, a Ford Puma, and a Toyota Yaris. Toyota shows up again.
Yeah.
And these are real cars effectively, and they're driving in the snow of Finland and they're driving in deserts in Kenya, and they're driving, I mean, like, they are everywhere. They're driving in Monaco, of course.
Yeah.
Which is where rally started. It started in 1911.
Is that right?
Yeah, at the Monte Carlo.
Interesting.
In fact, the term, it was originally the Monte Carlo Rally, which was this idea of, when racing was starting, what you'd do is you would just kind of drive from one city to another. That was your racing series. That was your race.
Yeah.
And eventually they were like, well, we'll do it on horse tracks so that we can have somewhere to race, so that people can actually watch it. But rally was this, no, we're going to continue this point to point, as they call it, racing. And so the Monte Carlo Rally, in 1911 is what really started. It's been known as rally ever since. The cars also have to be road legal.
I was going to say, I know that some American series that they are still road legal because you have to drive them in between the stages.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is wild.
That's how it works. You have to drive them between stages, which is insane considering where they're at. I mean, they're all over the world. And so you'll have your navigator driving.
Does the navigator drive them?
The navigator will sometimes take over between stages.
Interesting.
Because, to give the driver World Rally has a great 13-minute primer video that's like, here is what rally is.
Interesting.
And they talk about this, that your navigator will take over between stages so you can keep it going.
And for what it's worth, for the people who don't really know much about rally racing, is there's a navigator because they have these tracks or these rally stages. They're completely random pretty much every time, if I'm not mistaken. They change up. Like, they might be in the same area and everything, but point is, whether it's because nature, say they are running the exact same course every single year, like the same point to point, nature may have changed that road because of erosion, if there was rain or snow or something like that has just ruined it. Like, that road might be different now, or it just got recently paved by Forest Service or something like that. There's a lot of variables that could change this, or sometimes it is just, like in the case of World Rally Raid, like Dakar, sometimes it's genuinely they don't know the path at all.
There is no path.
And so what happens a lot of times is, in a lot of the series, they have what are called pre-runners. And this is especially the case in races like the Baja 1000, which is a rally race in Baja, California. They'll have pre-runners where they'll have like the team go out and they drive the track and they like take notes on, okay, I think we could take it this fast, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they call them recces, I think.
Oh, that would be recce's for like reconnaissance.
Yes.
Yeah. So they'll do these recce runs and they'll be taking notes the whole time. The navigator will take notes with very weird vocabulary that only the navigator and the driver understand.
And it's specific. It's no team does the same. They all have their own vernacular.
All very different. And that way, I as the driver don't know the track at all, but Corbin does know it. So that allows me to just put my hammer down because the whole time I'm trusting that Corbin has taken good enough notes that when he says, I mean, if you play the dirt rally games, their notes are based off of telling you 5 left, which means this is a 5th gear turn going to the left. 5th gear, you're probably in because you're going fast as hell. So that's basically his way of saying this isn't the sharpest turn, so you can take this really fast, but don't take it in 6th gear, because if you're taking it in 6th gear, you're going way too fast, you're going to go off.
Yep.
And like there's just so many levels of notes, and that comes from the navigator to the driver, where the driver is driving blind, because again, they don't know the course, but my navigator is giving me multiple notes ahead, which is therefore like kind of painting the picture on how the track is going to develop ahead of me.
It's insane. I mean, it's absolutely like it's driving on. The driver is driving on instinct to a degree. They are
100%.
They are trusting that their navigator can kind of be their external brain.
Yeah.
But the driver is feeling the road. I mean, they're feeling it's crazy, and even more so when Group B, when there was basically no like spec requirements. It was just kind of go for it. You had because Group B originally when World Rally started, and I'm sure it's a similar numbers now. You had to produce 5,000 units of your given car. That was the manufacturer limit in order to be at a minimum in order to drive that car, in order for the manufacturers to have that be a competing car. Group B, you only needed 200, totally cut down.
Yeah,
and so
much smaller.
So the specs were insane. They were doing anything, and it got to the point where it was so dangerous that the teams and drivers boycotted. They were talking about walking away entirely because they had the drivers found they had no control. The navigators could barely, they couldn't watch the road. All they had was their book.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a lot of footage of Group B racing where you see, because rally racing was huge in the 80s. I don't know if it's a chicken or the egg situation. It was probably already cool, which is why Group B came to be. But Group B just made it cooler because in that Group B era, you see so many photos of crowds in probably the thousands on one turn as a hatchback is coming at them at like 150 miles an hour, and the crowds are just barely moving in time for people to come through it. And part of the reason they got rid of Group B racing is because these overpowered cars that would make maybe 800 horsepower but weigh 1,200 pounds, they would fly off the road and kill 20 people in the crowds.
Yep, they were killing people regularly. They were killing drivers. There was a race that had 400,000 spectators.
Jesus Christ, that's Indy 500 size.
Yeah. Isn't
that is
crazy?
Insanity.
Yeah, it was. Group B is an amazing era to look back on, but it is just unsustainable. I mean, it was just too much. But yeah, at its peak, it was more popular in Formula One. Just for a bit.
I'm looking up. So that is a little under the population of Nebraska, 400,000 people. So
Omaha,
can you imagine?
Nebraska.
Yeah, Omaha, Nebraska. Pardon me. Can you imagine the entirety of Omaha, Nebraska to watch a couple people in small, shitty European hatchbacks race on a dirt road? That is so crazy.
And I never really was an Audi guy, but that Audi Quattro, that like group, holy
I saw one of them
shit.
at Pikes Peak when I photographed that
Oh
last
my
year.
God, of course.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
What an incredible vehicle.
Yeah.
Absolutely
So-
lovely. And if I remember correctly, Audi created all-wheel drive. That's what Quattro means.
Or is it all wheel, or is it specifically 4x4 or 4-wheel drive?
No, four-wheel drive was already a thing.
That was already
All-wheel drive.
All-wheel drive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I know that they definitely did they invent it or did they
I
just
believe they
popularize
invented it, if I remember correctly.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Let me fact check that. Okay, exotic vehicles such as the high-powered Jensen FF, followed by the AMC Eagle, Subaru Leon, and Audi Quattro series, were the first to offer all-wheel drive in a high-speed road-based car. So it doesn't sound like they invented it, but they were in the early stages of adopting it, at the very least. So, still cool.
Extremely cool.
Yeah.
Extremely cool. Honestly, this is something. I mean, these are all my notes for the time being regarding rally, but it's something I want to revisit because I think it's incredibly sick. Maybe when we come back around to watching a race properly, I think that this is something that I would love to red flag a little.
Sure.
Just to kind of sit with because there's a lot here. I mean, there's a lot.
There's a lot.
I think honestly, this kind of feels like the peak of motor racing. I mean, like the speed, the danger.
So I'm happy you say that because there's something called the Race of Champions.
Okay.
That happens every year. They just recently had it as well, where they gather pretty much, whether it's the actual champions of every race or at least some of the biggest names in each respective racing series, they gather them together and all race the exact same car in different disciplines of racing. And it's basically, the idea is to see who is the best at this racing series. And you know who often comes out on top?
It's the rally drivers.
It's the rally drivers.
Yeah.
Because the thing is in Formula One and, NASCAR, look at Daytona, so many other racing forms, as soon as there's a little bit of rain, yellow flag it or completely red flag it. They just stop, they avoid it. And to a degree, there's some real reasons as to that. It's a safety thing. You're running on slick tires that aren't designed to touch water the way our road tires are or intermediate or heavy wet tires are. But at the same time, they have intermediate and heavy wet, so why not use them? But that's neither here nor there. Rally racing, they don't give a damn because they'll race, as Corbin was saying, they'll race on everything from snow to the Monte Carlo. They will be on actual roads,
right,
albeit really tight roads, or they'll be on dirt roads. They are racing on any condition, whether it is raining or snowing or whatever. It doesn't matter what the conditions are. They are going to send it. And the guys just have balls of steel.
Yeah.
And so when they're sitting there next to Formula One drivers in the Race of Champions, people always talk about Formula One as being the pinnacle of motorsports. It's at the very least the pinnacle of engineering, no doubt about that. It's really hard to touch the performance of a Formula One car, and without a doubt, the people who drive those are absolutely insanely talented people who go through harder forces than pretty much any athlete in the world, right?
Yep.
But at the end of the day, they are just not touching these Formula One guys or these rally racers in pretty much any race of champions. This year's was won by Sebastian Loeb.
Yep.
He is the most successful WRC guy. He's won it 9 times.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Matthias Ekstrom won last year. He's DTM, so that would be German touring car. But he's also he's been competing in rallycross. All these names I'm looking at here right now of other people, it's rallycross and rally guys just all over the place. Last year, Mick Schumacher got second.
Hey,
so that's
Mick's
cool.
Coming back.
Yeah, guy. Oh, sorry, that was 2023. And Sebastian Vettel got second in 2022. So we'll give the Formula One guys credit, no doubt about that.
Sure.
But it's just it tends to overwhelmingly be rally racers who just absolutely crush it when they're in completely equal cars in a pretty universal form of racing. And if I remember correctly, the NASCAR guys usually do pretty bad.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They're great at what they do. What they do is just a different thing.
It's a specific discipline.
Very, very specific. That a lot of F1 guys are scared of. So take that as you will.
Take that as you will.
You have anything else to say about rally racing?
No for now. No for now.
All right.
I dig it.
I dig it too. You know what else I dig? I dig endurance racing.
Endurance racing.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about endurance racing last week. I'm going to do my best not to retread a lot of the ground that we already have. So the thing about endurance racing that I really like is I mentioned that it is multi-class racing. And what that means is they're running multiple classes just all at once. I know I talked about this a little bit last week, but again, basically what's going to happen is they're going to have GT classes, which are cars that people like Corbin and I can buy. They're going to have LMP2, and it's no longer LMP1, but it's a hypercar or GTP class. Cars of all dramatically different performance portfolios that are really, it's just fascinating because so much strategy comes out of having cars that are at dramatically different performance levels. Because if I'm driving what's basically a Formula One car and Corbin is driving what's a road car, I am going to crush him every single time. I'm going to be so much faster around a lap. And you'll see it in a lot of these races where they start at more or less the same time, but within 5 laps or so, it feels like the GTP cars, which is that top class that's similar to Formula One, they're already starting to lap some of the GT cars. They're just so much faster. It's really wild to see because Corbin's running his own race, but I am running my own race, which is at a higher category, so I need to get around him, but he can't so easily let me by because he has somebody right behind him. So if he slows down to let me by, he's also slowing down enough to let his competition go by him. It's so mind-boggling. Do you remember if I mentioned Sebring last year during last week's episode? So last year at Sebring, and I was rewatching the highlights earlier, Cadillac was looking like they were going to get the win. Cadillac and their bad luck. If I remember correctly, it was Cadillac and Acura were the top two in the GT class, and it's coming down to the final minutes. They're getting towards one of the final laps of the race, and what ends up happening is they reach laps traffic, and that makes for great racing every single time because now Cadillac's like, I need to get around this guy because he is now slowing me up enough that the Acura is on my ass, and I am super vulnerable. And so Cadillac's just desperately trying to get around, but he can't find the way to get around this GT car. And the last second, the Acura is able to swing around the outside, and he gets a double pass on the GT car and the Cadillac. And Cadillac loses it, as usual, at like the very last second. And it was super unfortunate to watch. Great work from the Acura team. Yeah, it was heartbreaking, and it's just the epitome of seeing how much lapsed traffic can change your strategy. Because otherwise, if I remember correctly, Cadillac looked great pretty much all day until that happened at the end of 12 hours of racing. It's tough.
It's crazy to me that, I mean, you just said it, that lapped traffic can have such an effect. It's crazy to see these disciplines racing in with like obstacles, like with built-in obstacles.
But also moving obstacles.
Moving obstacles.
Yeah, because like it is slowing me down. That's all that it's doing.
Yeah.
But it is also mobile and to a degree blocking me. So it's an obstacle that I'm having to interact with real time. It is a reactive obstacle.
I mean, how do you even plan for it, right? Like, how do you even build your strategy around like what are these slower classes going to be doing?
You just got to pray that you're good, that you get around it. I think is really all that you can do.
The circumstances work out for you.
Genuinely, yeah.
Well, and Sebring you mentioned, that's actually this coming weekend, right?
Sebring is this weekend, right. And if I remember correctly, this is going to be the first weekend that the Valkyrie is going to be in Sebring, right? Let's see. Yeah, well, Sports Car 365 is reporting that they're going to get a power reduction for the Sebring debut, so that sucks for them. They're going to be running a limping engine, it sounds like, but point is, we're going to get the Valkyrie stateside, and that's going to be super exciting. That's the V12 that we mentioned last year. That's going to just screams your way into your heart.
Yep.
Part of the reason I like endurance racing is because it is kind of the epitome of win on Sunday, sell on Monday. That is a saying that's used in racing all the time, where since racing always happens on a weekend, typically main event is on Sunday. Except for like endurance racing, a lot of times it's held on Saturday because the races are so long it bleeds into Sunday. But nevertheless, you win on Sunday so that you can sell on Monday. And the reason that is so applicable in sports car racing, which endurance racing is a form of sports car racing, is because if we are racing sports cars that you and I can buy, and we are watching Corvette like they did with the C6 win every race for years straight, and they're racing against something like a Lamborghini, or Bentley was racing back then, if I remember correctly. If they're racing against all these massive European brands that are going to cost at least a couple $100,000 compared to the Corvette, which will start at, maybe $40,000, and the Corvette's beating them every time, what does that say about the level of engineering? That's why it's win on Sunday, sell on Monday, because if I'm watching a Ferrari get its ass kicked every day by a small little American car, well, Corvette's not a small car, but just like a comparatively less important sports car kind of thing in terms of the hierarchy of people's minds and class and all that kind of stuff. If I'm watching a $500,000 car lose to a $60,000 car every time, why would I ever spend $500,000 on it? If I really care about the brand of Ferrari or whatever, sure. But I am a guy who believes in performance more than anything, and people know that with the racing world, because there's a lot of times you walk into these showrooms for a BMW or a Porsche or whoever it is, and they'll straight up advertise the car and they'll say, hey, just to let you know, that car you're looking at shares 99% of its parts with the race car that won last year's Le Mans race. And that is a real selling point that people love and immediately get excited for. So win on Sunday, sell on Monday. And I think that's kind of cool, the fact that we can just buy race cars like that.
Yeah, we can just buy race cars.
Yeah, we can buy race cars. But yeah, I think that there's something gnarly about that. I think another thing that's cool about endurance racing is the fact that in Formula One and so many other forms of racing, if you crash, you're just out of the race, because it's going to take so long to repair that car, and races are typically only 2 hours long. But in endurance racing, if you're racing at least 6 hours, upwards of 24 hours, I think if I remember correctly, there's the 73 hours of the Nürburgring.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Let me fact check that. Nürburgring.
73 hours?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a thing. Okay, maybe I'm lying. I feel like I remember hearing about the 73 hours of Nürburgring, so I don't know. Somebody's gonna have to correct me, and maybe I'll just correct myself in post. But
Is there 9 drivers?
probably, yeah, just something insane. But yeah, when there's so much time in endurance racing, if I crash my car, I'm still going to have, 10 hours left to repair it. So my engineers, they'll get to work and they'll repair it, assuming it's not fatal. They will, like catastrophic failure that's taken my car out. They'll repair it and they will send me back out to continue the race, because who's to say that car that was in the lead the entire time, maybe they crash in the final hour and you are now back in the race and have a chance, maybe not at first place, but like fourth place, which is still going to get you a lot of points for the championship at the end of the year. It's crazy because you're really never out of the fight until the very end of the fight. And I think that's just sick.
That's great.
It's really cool. And another thing I think that's worth talking about with endurance racing is the fact that a lot of real world innovations that you and I benefit from came from endurance racing. We don't benefit from this first one, but mid-engine cars were created in 1949 with the Renault 4CV. Mid-engine is, think about how most Ferraris and Lamborghinis look, as well as the newest generation of Corvettes. That platform, McLaren, those are mid-engine platforms. The engine is in the rear, but in between, it's in front of the rear axle, so that's why it's mounted in the middle. In 1949. Disc brakes were created in 1954, thanks to Jaguar. And before that, we were using drum brakes, which, if I remember correctly, we kind of left those behind because while they're cheap, they just don't have great performance comparatively. So thank you, Jag, for making disc brakes. Slicks and rear wings were created in 1967, and Michelin were the ones who brought the slicks for Alpine. And rear wings were used by Chaparral, and they were actually the first people to do active rear wings as well. They had a little pedal, like a little third pedal in the pedal box, where if they would press it, it would like change the angle that it was at. So how aggressive they had their downforce at. And that was in 1967.
Oh my God.
And for what it's worth, not everybody has a car with a spoiler or a wing like that. However, it's still the principles of aerodynamics.
Yep.
So we still have to thank that for that.
Wouldn't that be a fourth pedal technically? At the time, would it not still be? They would still have a
they would
clutch, right?
almost certainly have clutch. So I guess that would probably be a fourth pedal. That's a great point, and that is exhausting to think about. Yeah, and most of us don't have a car with a spoiler, but if you have your sports cars, you likely do. Whether it's just a tiny duckbill, or some people, whether it's a GT3 RS or something like that, they have the full, basically competition spec rear wing.
My Corolla has a spoiler.
Your Corolla has a spoiler.
A little tiny one, but it's got it.
Those duckbills, baby.
I need that arrow.
Exactly. 74, Porsche put a turbo in their car, and pretty much every small economy car, not every, but a lot of small economy cars have turbos because it's a cheap, easy way to make power. Yep. So that's great. Hybrids debuted in 98 in a really popular way, and that helped them to proliferate and get a lot more research done. And while windshield wipers weren't created for endurance racing really helped to streamline them and make them more beneficial for people. So it helped a lot with their shape. They started to design them to be rounder so that it was better for aerodynamics. And even then, it was in pursuit of better aerodynamics is what made the windshield wipers go on a spring on the squeegee so that it better conforms to the shape of the windshield.
Right.
So small interesting things like that. We all have endurance racing to thank for that.
Right.
And they help to popularize headlights in a decent way as well. This is an endurance racing, but if I remember correctly, the first ever case of a rear view mirror was in the Indy 500.
The Indy 500. What did the car look like?
I think it was AJ Foyt. No, AJ Foyt's still alive. It wouldn't be Foyt. I don't remember who it was, but yeah, everyone is so focused, no, you need to focus on what's in front of you. But then one guy basically just taped a piece of glass on top of his windshield area, so that he could see what people behind him are doing to better block. And then from that point on, everyone's we need mirrors.
Oh my! So did they not? They didn't have side mirrors then.
They had nothing.
Nothing. You just put in.
Somebody had to invent something.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, it was the Indy 500 that popularized mirrors. Yeah, so that's racing for you. Better technology comes from that. You also have things like carbon fiber. Granted, that was more of a Formula One thing, but just so much technology that we benefit from today comes from racing.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And it's funny. It's like the space race, right? It's like how many things came from NASA,
Yeah.
right? Same thing. How many things came to consumer cars from motorsport?
Yeah,
It's incredible.
absolutely. I agree with you. What do we got next? We have a little red flag topic, don't we?
We do. We do. We've got a big old. We have a video.
If I remember correctly, wasn't it called Sempre Ferrari? Was that what it was called?
I thought it was Forza Ferrari.
It's Sempre Forza Ferrari.
Yes,
I'm using my Italian language there.
Yeah, so good.
Sempre Forza Ferrari. That means always strong Ferrari. This video came out, and it's sick. I'm going to read what I wrote up here.
Yeah,
okay.
excited.
So the thing about racing, as I mentioned before, is you win on Sunday, you sell on Monday. All of racing is a marketing thing, right? In traditional sports, there's obviously always going to be a sales element, whether it's simply having sponsors on a team or the fact that a lot of the more popular athletes, they have their own brand of a shoe, right? Their own line of a shoe. Yeah, I mean, in traditional sports, unless you're a team player or you're a team owner, you're not buying a player. You know what I mean? Like, sure, you can buy their contract out at the end of the year, but we are not buying players. I'm not buying LeBron. I'm not buying Luka. I only know 2 Lakers and nothing else.
Those are 2, yeah.
What's that?
Those are 2, yeah.
Those are 2 of them, yes. You're not buying a team, but we can buy these cars, you know? And these cars are what helps to make somebody so dominant and incredible at what they do. That's just kind of what makes motorsports different and why, I mean, if you win a game, if LeBron wins a game, I don't think everybody is going to go out. I mean, this is purely speculative as a guy who doesn't watch a lot of traditional sports. But I don't think people are going to go out and immediately be like, I need to buy a pair of LeBron shoes because LeBron's shoes are what gives him the talent. No, LeBron already has talent and he has his own shoe. A lot of these Formula One guys have talent, but their car is what really pushes them over the edge. Same with every other form of racing. That car really helps them, and we can, to a degree, buy those cars. Why am I bringing that up? Back in the day, before I watched Formula One, a brand that I never cared about was Mercedes. I never gave a damn about them. I always kind of looked at them as old people cars. I just had no interest in it. But after I started watching Formula One and learning a little bit more about how Mercedes won 8 straight Constructors' Championships and just continued to dominate all the time, that was the first time I ever kind of just thought to myself, wait, does Mercedes know what they're doing? They clearly know that they know how to build an engine, at least for this one specific application. Surely those engineers have permeated down the way, and that just makes me more interested in Mercedes as a brand. I don't care about Mercedes anymore because Lewis Hamilton's gone.
Right.
And the culture kind of feels that way. Nobody really cares about Mercedes anymore. And you can tell that it feels like they don't really have a direction without Hamilton. But the opposite side of that coin is Ferrari. Ferrari for years in the 2010s was horrible. They really had no performance. They had crappy cars. Just everything about them was bad. Their strategy was bad. Their drivers bottled it very consistently. There just wasn't really anything to say about Ferrari as a team. And it made me think to myself, I don't think I'll ever buy a Ferrari.
Really? That was what made it?
That's my line in the sand, is that I'm not going to buy a Ferrari because look how bad the Formula One team is. And, you know, there's a huge caveat of the fact that Ferrari is its own entity. Mm-hmm. It is a religion over there. I mean, they will literally, they have a church built right by one of their main test tracks. Mm-hmm. And they'll literally ring the church bells after they win a race and everything. Like, it is actually a religion and a way of life there. So there is that difference. But nevertheless, I was always kind of watching them. I'm like, God, you guys are really incompetent. And that kind of makes me wonder how your road programs are, like your actual road cars. But now that Hamilton is with Ferrari, those guys are cooking.
They're selling.
They are selling so hard. I mean, their F1 team, they have had an improvement in their performance. I think it was in 2022. Charles Leclerc started the season very strong, and I think that would have been the SF23. Mm. Started the year super strong, and I had some friends who were watching it super actively back then. I was like, guys, Ferrari's going to win this this WDC. Like, they're going to win the championship. This is going to be Leclerc. I'm excited. This is happening. It obviously didn't end up playing out that way. And then they had, the next season didn't have too much to write home about, but last year they did pretty well.
Yep. They were second overall, I believe.
I believe they were second overall. Yeah, 2023 is when Sainz got his first win as well, if I remember correctly. Like Ferrari has started to come back, but especially now that they have Hamilton, it is just lighting culture on fire. I mean, the fact that the world kind of stopped for a moment. I mean, I would see traditional news outlets reporting on the fact that Hamilton left Ferrari. I was trying to put it in perspective with my mom, who I got her into the F1 show Drive to Survive, and she doesn't really keep up with it anymore, but she loved Lewis Hamilton, as everybody does. And when he switched teams, I tried to put it in perspective with her, and I was like, Mom, this is like Steph Curry leaving the Golden State Warriors while they're still kind of in their prime. Like maybe the Golden State Warriors haven't won the championship in like a couple of years there, right? But this is still the team that built Steph and that he built. And he leaves to join the Chicago Bulls because while the Bulls aren't great right now, they still have the legacy of being the coolest and baddest to ever do it because of the fact that they had Michael Jordan back in the day and they just could not stop. They were unbeatable. That's the only way that I could consider this move. And when I said that to her, she was like, damn, like that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And if you want to talk other eras, say that's Jordan leaving the Bulls to join the Lakers because the Lakers had Barkley back in the day, you know? Now I know 3 Lakers.
Yeah, great.
It's just, it was so unprecedented. And I think videos like this, Sempre Forza Ferrari, really shows how crazy they are because it's a short little hype video that really isn't created for everything. Like it doesn't really talk about, hey, the first race is this weekend. It's not a behind the scenes of, hey, here's what we've done with our car. It is just the coldest video ever. A B-roll of both of their very handsome drivers just standing there looking badass. They show the cars coming through. They put so many guys in the pit crew on display. They show like the guy with the wheel gun, one of the tire carriers, and then they go through and talk about the religion and the way of life and all that kind of stuff. They're literally interviewing priests and restaurant owners. They're talking about this is a healthy life. We bring our food to make ourselves stronger because that's what we do in Italy. And something else that makes us stronger is Ferrari.
Yeah. Passion in life is what people kept saying.
Yeah. It is. Ferrari is passion in life. And that's all that they're chanting through this video. And I watched it and my jaw was just on the floor. It ends with like just the coolest crawl. The music is getting loud as hell as Forza comes in from the left side, Ferrari comes in from the right side, and they just stack on top of each other at the end. And again, it's not promoting anything. Right. It's not saying new merch is dropping or anything. It's just the coolest thing ever with the coolest editing and genuine cinematography that everything Ferrari has done since Hamilton first suited up in red. I mean, that first photo of him outside of the Maranello facility wearing all black.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
That was the start of it.
Broke the internet kind of thing, you know? I mean, so many of my friends, we have a friend named Tanner, doesn't really care about any of this kind of stuff. He knows Hamilton because he's a black man and Tanner's into style, and that's Hamilton's whole thing outside of Formula One. And he's just an important figurehead, right? Tanner even sent me the photo. He's like, yo, what's going on here, man?
Yeah.
Like his drip just keeps going. There's just immaculate vibes are coming out of the man, and they've just continued to go as he's starting this testing. Everything Ferrari's done has just made my jaw on the floor, and I'm sitting here thinking to myself, I might have to buy a Ferrari. Like I'm a Ferrari fan.
Yeah, since you can. Yeah, since it's so accessible.
It's so accessible. I mean, it's just like a little Ferrari, you know. But I don't know, man. I'm just so unspeakably excited for it. We haven't even seen them race yet. I mean, they did fine in testing, but
they did fine. I'm just there's a lot of hype here.
There's so much hype.
There's a lot of hype, and I really hate to see their engine explode. on first day of Australia this weekend.
Yeah.
Because it's true. They did. I think they definitely punched up last year.
100%.
From where they were. It's true. They did. I think they definitely punched up last year.
100%.
From where they were. They've been on an up streak. Hamilton's one of the greatest. And there's a lot to be said. But I don't know, man. There's a lot of hype for the season that hasn't started.
It's a lot of hype. It's
a lot of hype.
You really have to debate, like, how much of this is copium? How much of this is just trying to get on the gravy train? Like, there's a lot of questions in the air. I want to believe because I'm a Hamilton fan. Vettel had a quote years ago where he said something to the degree of, he said something like,
Even if you're not a fan of Ferrari, like you
You're,
are.
yeah,
something
you're a
to that.
Ferrari fan. Like
Yeah,
even if you're
yeah.
not a Ferrari fan, you're a Ferrari fan.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel about Hamilton. Like I don't care where he is.
Oh yeah.
I am going to support that man. He could be racing for Haas.
I'm not wearing my I have a Hamilton sweatshirt
Oh, do
that
you?
I wear all the time, yeah, and I am not
Yeah.
wearing it. I didn't even think about it, but yes, I mean, 100%. Like, I've not been a Mercedes fan, and I'm not a Ferrari fan, but I am a Hamilton fan.
Well, yeah, nobody will ever be a Mercedes fan again now that he's gone. But
Well, George Russell doesn't do it for you?
anyways, but no, it's like yeah, the hype is really there, and I pray that it goes well for him. But yeah, I don't know. It just has me excited because I think beforehand, in terms of marketing in Formula One, it was Red Bull. Because Red Bull, while they make energy drinks, that's not their thing. They're a marketing company.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
Yeah.
And they would do all these crazy videos of, they're the dudes who I feel like started the trend of sending an F1 car to the middle of the city center and like doing drifting donuts on display and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. They'll do videos of them drag racing their F1 car versus a MotoGP bike. They were always doing cool stunts.
Yeah.
And I mean, Ferrari, they've been having a lot of videos coming out of them doing those same drifting type events in the Formula One cars. But now their marketing is just going through the roof. And it's basically just them being like, well, they kind of did nothing for the better part of the 2010s when they were crap and I wasn't going to buy one. Now they're kind of just sitting there whipping out their proverbial Johnson and saying, we're Ferrari. And it's time for you to respect that. Like, they're really coming out strong and saying Ferrari is always strong. That's the title of the video.
Ferrari's always been a lifestyle brand. Like,
Yeah.
that is a fact. Like, it comes across in everything they are. Their livery's iconic.
Yeah.
Of course, the prancing pony is iconic. I mean, how often do you just see people wearing like not F1 merch, not a driver, just the Ferrari logo?
Yeah, just a car brand.
Right.
It's
You know,
often Ferrari, especially here in this city.
Yeah, it's so common. You know, I'll certainly see like people wearing Red Bull stuff, but it's always in reference to primarily Max, of course. But I don't see people wearing like generic Red Bull merch, or I certainly don't generally see people wearing like Mercedes merch. It's usually in reference to a driver or specifically like the team generally.
Yeah.
Ferrari is like, no, it's Ferrari. You could show that logo to, it's like Nike, right?
Yeah.
You could show that logo to almost anyone in the world.
And they'll be like, that's Ferrari.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Enzo has that quote where he says, you ask a kid to draw, I think he said like a fast car or maybe a race car, and they're going to pick up a red crayon or the color red, whatever. It was something to that degree. You get the point. And that's why their cars are always red and why they respect the color red all the time is because they're just like, no, if you ask a kid what a fast car looks like, they're going to pick up the color red immediately. Yeah. I mean, that's part of the reason Ferrari has always historically been annoying is they are very, very aggressively up their own ass. Have you seen the movie Rush?
Oh yeah, of course.
Great film, but when Niki Lauda does the test drive,
I have that video saved on my computer right here.
that's hilarious.
Like,
For this purpose, or did you just already always have it there?
No, I when we started talking about doing this podcast, I was like, I'm gonna need this someday. And yes, 100%. He does the test drive.
Yeah.
And he goes, it's shit.
Yeah, so yeah, Niki Lauda does a test drive, and he's like, oh shit, I think he's talking about like it understeering, like just it's not behaving.
Yeah.
And the mechanic goes, oh, you can't say that. And he goes, why not? And he goes, it's a Ferrari. And
He says, it's a shit box.
yeah, he's like, no, it's a piece of shit. And that has how Ferrari has always been. Same thing if you watch like Ford versus Ferrari. Not that you need to get these facts through media because like they're true stories, but Ford was going to buy Ferrari, and Enzo said something to the degree of, your mom's a fat pig and I'll never be owned by Americans. He said something to that, if I remember correctly, almost verbatim. And like Ferrari just refuses to be normal.
Yes, it's all pride. I mean,
It's all
pure
Italian pride. And I mean, that was a thing where there's been a lot of cases. Charles Leclerc years ago was really complaining about his car to his boss, Mattia Binotto, the then team principal. And if I remember correctly, Mattia was quoted as saying, you are not bigger than Ferrari. Or I think that was a case of another driver years ago. But either way, there have been so many times where the Italian team ran by Italians, they'll sit there and a driver will have a completely normal complaint. Hey man, my wheels fell off. And they go, no, it didn't. It's a Ferrari. It's perfect. Yeah. And they just refuse to acknowledge any faults because it's Ferrari. But right now, Ferrari is saying, you're damn straight we're Ferrari.
Yeah.
And I'm so locked in, man.
You know what? If they can prove it this weekend, or they can prove it through this year, like, I'll let them have their pride. You know, they had their golden years. Mm-hmm. They've had some, especially under Schumacher, like.
And I mean, they are the most winningest team.
Right. Well, they're also the oldest.
Yeah, they've raced in every single season.
Yeah.
So yeah, stats help them. If nothing else.
It's a numbers game. But yeah, no, for real, like Ferrari, it's a storied brand. It's probably the most iconic brand. Mm-hmm. And they've obviously hired, I don't know, Denny Villeneuve. I was trying to figure out who actually shot this thing. It kind of runs like that.
It's insane cinematography. Like me as a camera, photo, video guy, I'm watching this just jaw on the floor. I mean, a lot of it's editing too.
Yeah, it's all
editing. But point is, like the shots underneath are still incredible.
The audio was insane.
It is cinema. In 4 minutes. Again, for nothing.
For nothing.
They are not saying come to the race. They aren't saying buy our clothes. Again, that's obviously the underlying factor, but it's just they're just making it because they can and because they know we're the coolest people in the world. Mm-hmm. I'm so excited for this race.
You're getting excited for Formula One. We can't have that.
I know.
That flies in the face of everything we're doing.
It literally destroys the whole idea of this podcast. But you know what? I'll say this. This is now no longer about about Lewis Hamilton and this insane video, which y'all need to watch because it's just the coolest thing ever. Cadillac is officially coming to Formula One next year.
Yes, sir.
And it's going to take them some time to get the GM power plant. So in the meantime, they're going to be using Ferrari engines. And I think that'll be pretty cool.
That's pretty interesting.
Because I'm already a big ol' fan of Cadillac, thanks to their, first off, being GM, you know, shout out my GM boys and my Corvette and all that. But also because, again, listen to that freaking LMDH car that they have. The V-Series is what it's called. Incredible stuff. And I want to see them win in F1 because America rocks, Cadillac rocks. And if they're running a Formula One Ferrari engine, I feel like that'll probably be cool. Although they should let them use V8s, just because. Just because. Do you have anything to add, Corbin?
Did you see Alpine's response video?
Did they make a video?
They made a video, they put out a video, yesterday. I actually put it in, it's in their show notes here. I crudely shoved in a link to TikTok because that's where you sent me that video. I saw that video after Alpine's response video, and I had no context for it. Alpine puts out effectively the same, it's not the same. It's not the same level of cinematography, but it's attempting to be, and it's doing all these jokey things. They basically made the trailer for Deadpool using Jack Doonan and Pierre Gasly. Even in the video's description, it's an intern panic made this at 2 a.m. And it's this is clearly in reference to, and I had no idea. I had no idea what it was until you sent me this Ferrari video.
That is so funny.
Oh,
I'm gonna watch this live. I'm gonna have to mute this for the playback, but I'm really excited for this. Let's see. So they're doing a Bond thing here. Yeah. This is written at 2 a.m. in Panic.
Yep.
Okay. I mean, you know what? For what, two identical haircuts, because both their guys have buzz cuts right now.
Themselves, yep.
You know, I will say, produced by a Gen Z social media intern who loves Ryan Reynolds. Well, that's not funny anymore. I appreciate this because they went for it. I'm really trying to find positive things to say. This is genuinely kind of funny to a degree, but it definitely shows, I think, the difference. In what everything is, you know?
Yeah.
Because Ferrari is the coolest ever, and Alpine is someone that nobody really cares about, just period. Even then, if I remember correctly, Alpine announced that they're going to switch to Mercedes engines.
Yes.
So
they're no longer using the Renault engine.
Yeah, they're a French brand. They're a luxury French brand underneath Renault, because they used to be Renault, and then they turned into the luxury French brand, Alpine. But they aren't even using anything French. They're switching to the German power plant. So then everyone's the one thing that everyone talks about in F1 is how you will never win the Constructors' Championship unless you make your own engine, because you will never understand the engine as well as the people who made it for you. Yeah. And it's going to be harder to optimize your chassis around something you didn't create. And so the fact that Alpine went and sacrificed having a works engine that is their own manufactured piece, nobody supported that. Nobody liked that.
Nobody liked
that. Yeah, the Fallout reference. So Alpine's unserious. I don't know. I have nothing to say about that.
I know. It's, yeah.
And I'm mad that you shared that with me.
I know. It's all I could think about this entire time. You've been gassing up this Ferrari, and I was like, well, you need to see the Alpine response video.
That's ridiculous. I don't know. I mean, Ferrari, I'm going to be there for Ferrari. I will not be there for Alpine.
Oh, that's
I want to support Pierre Gasly because he was cool a couple years ago. His haircut's crazy now, but...
Why did they both shave their heads?
I don't know. They look bad, but that's neither here nor there. Corby, do you have anything else to add?
I think that's all I got. Now that I've ruined your night, I think I'm sufficient. I'm happy.
Now that you've ruined my night, exactly.
You know, it's fun. I think the Ryan Reynolds thing, Ryan Reynolds is like a fan. He's a part-time owner of Alpine now.
That's right.
That's part of it.
Oh, gross.
Which kind of like ruins it.
Yeah, that's not great. I don't like that.
That's kind of, that really poisons it, doesn't it?
Yeah, poison pill that.
Yeah.
So before we leave then, let's talk about what's going on this week. We have the first race of the year for Formula One, so we will need to talk about that at least a little bit.
Australia. Back to Australia for the first.
Back to Australia.
Being the inaugural race.
Mm-hmm. We're going to have IMSA this weekend as well. That's going to be at Sebring in Florida. Hopefully, Cadillac actually does something. But, for your sakes, it's you're supporting Valkyrie, the Aston Martin. Maybe that turns into something as well. I doubt it, respectfully, but we'll see.
Yeah, after the WEC performance, I'm not too certain.
Yeah, not holding out hope on that one. What else? I think that's it. I think that's it for the races that we have this weekend. So we're going to talk... next week, that means we're going to talk a little bit about Australia, and we're going to talk a little bit about... Florida man, several Florida men.
Good day, mate.
Good day, mate.
Hey, both have alligators.
Both have alligators.
Or crocodiles? Wait, both have crocodiles.
I don't know the difference. There
is a difference?
There is a difference, yeah.
That's what I provide, is there is a difference.
There is a difference.
There is a difference. I think there's crocodiles in both. I think there's only gators in the U.S.
I'm going to take your word for that.
Please do.
This has been the Formula None podcast. Thank you so much for watching and or listening. And we'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks for watching.